Tuesday, December 8th. We have Pastor Glenn Meyer from Trinity Lutheran here to lead us in invocation and the pledge.
Let us pray. Eternal Lord, ruler of all, graciously regard those who have been set in positions of authority among us, that guided by your Spirit they may be high in purpose, wise in counsel, firm in good resolution, and unwavering in duty, that under them we may be governed quietly and peaceably, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Corey, would you call the roll, please? We do have a quorum, by the way.
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Cox?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Boatright?
Here.
Pritchard? Mayor?
Here. We're on to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address. Council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. Didn't have anyone sign up, but I do know that Mr. Wagner is here. He would like to speak to us. Turn it off?
Turn it on.
Oh, I thought it was on.
Council, can you hear me? Council members, thank you for letting me show up. I'm Brecken Wagner, 311 East Osage here in McAlester, Oklahoma. Also business owner at Wagner & Lynch. And the reason why I was coming today, I've been speaking with some members of the council and with the mayor about a concern that I have, and y'all should have got an email from me prior to tonight's hearing. And in that email, there was a link that went to a video on a YouTube channel that's owned by my office. But that video was different clips from the McAlester Police Department from body cameras. We just heard recently that we're getting more body cameras. My biggest concern, what I see all the time as an attorney who gets these body camera videos, is what's going on in the videos. Our officers are constantly muting or just turning the cameras off, but giving them no purpose at all. As a matter of fact, actually going against what the purpose of the body camera is, which is to protect the citizens as well as the officers. And that's not happening. And if you look at the video I sent you, you'll see that it is just systematic. I mean, and it's not just our department. There's one clip, I think, of our fire marshal asking a McAlester Police Department officer to turn off or mute his mic. These are senior officers doing it all the way down to new officers doing it. If we're going to have these body cameras, we need to have them on at all times. So I proposed a potential policy change or ordinance. I've sent that to Mr. Stevens. It's also available. Sent it to all of you. He's my councilman. And it basically proposes this, that we change the policy and that all MPD officers must wear a body camera, and that camera comes on when they come on duty. And it stays on. And if they take it off or they mute it in any way, then there should be some area of discipline, because they need to keep these on. And there's no reason for them to be muting or turning anything off. That's the other part. Because when those videos come to, say, attorneys, or they come to people as a result of a Freedom of Information Act request, anything that can be redacted that's private or personal, like Social Security numbers or minors or things like that, is redacted. Ms. Middleton does a great job of doing that, I know, or is in charge of doing it. And I see those redactions in these videos. But what I see that's troubling me is the muting, is the turning off. The video I sent you was an active crime scene where 3 McAlester Police Department officers were there. It ended up resulting in a search of that same scene. By the time it got to the search of that house, there's no video of that search, none at all, because every single one of those officers had turned their cameras off by that point. So I'm asking the city, the biggest problem with body cameras is cost, and the city of McAllister has gotten past that. So we got the cameras. I'm asking now that we enforce what they're there for and they be used appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now on to the consent agenda. All matters not listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of A, approval of minutes from the November 24th, 2020 regular meeting of the McAllister City Council. B, approval of claims for November 18, 2020 through December 1st, 2020. C, consider and act upon a $250 one-time net pay for all full and part-time regular employees. D, concur with mayor's appointment of Gladys Strickland to the Housing Authority Committee to replace Ms. Donna Hobbs. E, concur with mayor's appointment of Jeremy Spiegel to the Planning and Zoning Commission to replace Ms. Michelle Mabry. Would anyone like anything removed? I did take a motion and a second to approve the consent. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We are now on to public hearing. All persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the City Charter. We have two tonight. The first is an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending ordinance number 2687, which established the budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for a severability clause, and declaring an emergency. The second is an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending McAllister City Code, Chapter 94, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Sections 94-91, obstruction by trees or shrubs, grass on sidewalks, repealing all conflicting ordinances, and providing for severability. Take a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, we are now in public hearing. If anyone would like to address us concerning the first ordinance, or step forward. Seeing no one, if anyone would like to address us on the second, please come forward. Seeing no one, I take a motion and second to close. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 1. Consider and act upon authorizing the city manager to accept a 2020 Justice Assistance Grant Local Law Enforcement Award from the Oklahoma District Attorney's Council in the amount of $9,595 towards the purchase of handheld radios for the McAllister Police Department. Ms. Jacqueline.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What we have before you this evening is a grant of $9,595 to help purchase 12 handheld radios from McAllister Police Department. This grant does not require a match and should be implemented within the next year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions or concerns, comments? Take a motion and second to approve. Motion, Councilman Cox, second, Councilman Smith. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Cox?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 2. Consider and act upon an ordinance amending ordinance number 2687, which established a budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for a severability clause, and declaring an emergency. Ms. Swift.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, council members, we've got 2 exhibits, 2 budget amendments that we're making. The first one is our general fund, Exhibit A-1. We are appropriating funds for patrol workers' comp. That's our first item there of $34,120. And then we have interdepartmental contingency that is, as you can see, it's $543,184. And that is being adjusted or allocated to fire and patrol severance that was over $25,000, which is our limit to bring to council for before any adjustments or transfers can be made. And then we have the remainder is through Parks, Recreation, and Planning, appropriating funds for those returning employees that we brought back to the city throughout the year. And the last one is, with general fund, is the Blue Cross Blue Shield Wellness of $50,000 that's being that we distributed amongst our employees for completing a wellness initiative, I guess, some wellness classes. On Exhibit A2, and this is MPWA for $10,470, and we're appropriating funds there for our holiday bonus expenditures. In our other funds and general fund were fine. Here we needed to make sure that we were covered in MPWA, so we're making that appropriation into the pay contingency to cover those expenses for $10,470.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Councilman Smith?
So, Sherry,
Yes.
all of the money that we're putting into the various areas
Departments?
are because of people coming back to work?
Yes, they've been applied, actually, they've come back to work, and because we're getting closer to the mid-year, we've used the funds that we had already budgeted, and so now we're trying to replenish what we've used to get us to the remainder of the year. But yes, that is returning employees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Cox?
Can you explain, on the third line, the contingency pay adjustment, the decrement of 543? Can you explain that again, please?
The pay contingency was what we had budgeted at the beginning of the year that was allocated for funding employees as they came back. And the severance and the unused leave there are the expenses that we incurred for a lot of the retirements that took place in those departments.
Okay. And then the final question is, down here under the fund information,
Yes,
none of the amendments over here made it down there. Is there a reason for that?
it doesn't affect fund balance.
Okay.
Anyone else? Take a motion and a second to approve the motion. Councilman Smith, second Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes?
Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. This carries an emergency with it, so I take a motion and a second on the emergency. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 3. Consider an act upon the final payment in the amount of $357,185.61 to APAC Central Incorporated for the street overlay project and accept the project as completed. Mr. Stasiak?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, this is our street overlay project. It consisted of 26 blocks laid out across the city of McAllister. These were blocks identified by the engineering department that we were capable of overlaying and not having to rebuild the base underneath them. The initial approval from the council was $559,247.60. We did have a change order that was approved by council in the amount of $48,285 for a total cost of $607,532.60. After all the quantities were looked at and everything that was done, Out of the 5,212 tons, we actually utilized 5,108.83, resulting in a credit of $59,355.20. Council, tonight we are asking for approval to pay APAC with the completion of the project in the amount of $357,185.61. Engineering has looked at all the quantities and verified all the information, and everything that was done by APAC has been completed at this time.
I had a couple people contact me on, they're actually in Third Ward on Elm Street, where they did the overlay, but they didn't do anything on the manholes. There's about a 4 to 6 inch pothole there. Is it their responsibility to fix it, or is that ours?
That is our responsibility, and we've been notified by several different areas within the city, and we are ordering the rings to be able to bring those manholes up. If you're aware of anything, please let us know. We'll put a cone in it until those rings come in, and our streets department will get out there and put those and raise those manholes up.
Anyone else have any questions? Councilman Cox?
Was it part of the contract for the asphalt to be feathered in at the driveways, or did they just do the streets and we ignore the 3-inch bump on every
They just did the
driveway?
streets, and Councilman, one of the reasons that they did that in a lot of the locations, we needed to maintain drainage, and some of that drainage needed to be maintained. Now, especially on the streets that have curb and gutter, if they don't have curb and gutter, then they were just required to do the overlay.
I think we need to have, for future projects, I think we need to have engineering relook at that, because we have created a tremendous problem throughout the town.
Certainly.
I don't know how many complaints I've gotten, and even personally, pulling in and off of some of these roads, you might as well be hitting a pothole.
Okay.
You've got a 3 to 4 inch drop at all these driveways.
Councilman, what I'll do is because this is the first time I've heard about this, what I'll do is I'll have engineering go out and take a look at that and see if it's possible this spring that we could feather in a section on those drive-ins or those driveways. That wouldn't be that difficult to do.
Thank you.
Councilman Smith, did you have your hand up a minute ago? Councilman Smith, did you have your hand up?
Don't we usually get a statement from engineering going over all the steps and everything's been done, and everything's satisfactory, and everything's been completed?
That's part of the closeout documents that were engineering handled, so they've already taken care of that portion of it. George Marcangeli is the one that handled all of this, and he's signed off on all the quantities, all the measurements, everything that APAC has done.
Normally, doesn't he put a sheet of paper in here saying that?
We can certainly do that. Normally, we don't.
Isn't that what we normally do?
Infomark usually, if they handle the engineering, they usually come to the meeting and say, but since we did this in-house, it'd be.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 4. Consider and act upon an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending McAllister City Code, Chapter 94, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Section 94-91, obstruction by trees or shrubs, grass on sidewalks, repealing all conflicting ordinances, and providing for severability. Ms. Clifton.
Good evening, Council. This is bringing back the ordinance that I brought to you for a first reading, and this is just to recommend the approval of this.
I have a couple of questions. You know, the first time we talked about this, my question was, how are we going to determine if we do it or if we don't do it, or how are we going to make sure that we treat everybody the same?
This ordinance is just to clearly and consistently convey the same information to all citizens on what's expected of them. as far as the administrative decision on whether or not, city employees trim those trees, I don't make that decision. This is just something that, needs to be clearly stated because we don't have anything in there as far as where those trees should be trimmed.
I think that the best ordinance defines exactly what we're going to do. And I think that this could be a problem because we could end up trimming someone's trees and not trimming someone else and possibly fining them. And we need to do something about that. I don't know if it needs to be an ordinance or how it needs to be done, but Mr. Stasiak, do you have anything?
Mayor, at this time, we're not establishing who is trimming the trees or whether it's the homeowner or whether the city's going to send out a contractor or whether we're going to do it ourselves. All we're establishing here is the fact that these people need to be aware that they're responsible for these trees. In my neighborhood, you can walk down the sidewalk and the trees are down almost to 4 feet. We're telling the public that you must maintain them 7.5 feet over the sidewalk where people can walk. We're also explaining in this ordinance that there's a certain height requirement for trees that are hanging out over the street that are in our right-of-way. That's the responsibility of the homeowner also. I have a tree in my right-of-way at the end of my driveway, and I go out every year and I trim that tree so that school buses and semis and those type of things can go down my street. That's my responsibility. And then all we're saying at this point is it's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain these things. We're not telling them what kind of fine is going to be implemented or who's going to have to do it. In the future, as this develops, we will have to look at laying it out somewhat similar to mowing of vacant lots, those type of things, but those will have specific fees associated with them. And that with that will also come letters explaining the situation, people knocking on doors, and also giving people the opportunity to get this taken care of. And also the costs associated with it, those type of things.
But don't you think that this only addresses half of that, half of what you just said? It says you got to do it, but there's nothing after that?
Right now, we're just letting the homeowners to know that they're required to meet these standards, which are height requirements. That's what we're telling them.
Yeah,
We haven't established.
Yeah, but we're not telling them what happens if they don't. And we're not telling them, I know in the past that we have done it. We've done the trimming on it. So are we not going to do that anymore in the future? I mean, that's, I'm not against the idea. I just don't think I think we've done half the job.
It does say in the ordinance, though, that it's subject to abatement under the provisions of Chapter 82, which that is lot cleaning. So the lot cleaning allows for notices to be, sent to the property owners to advise them of what needs to be done to correct, the problem, or that's there. This right here is just, we need to be able to tell the homeowners what's required, though, because it's not as far as the trees over the street. I mean, at some point, we need to make some kind of decision to keep our streets clear. I mean, we're losing our public ways.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, but when we tell them that, we also need to tell them that if you don't do it, this is what happens.
It is. It's outlined in Chapter 82.
Okay.
For lot cleaning, yes.
Okay. And the other question I had was, it says, growing such lot or premises or upon parking adjacent thereto. So what would parking adjacent thereto be?
That would be if there's any parking spots that are adjacent, that are like on-street parking.
Okay. I still don't understand how that would differ from anything else.
I mean, I can strike that out of there, I guess, with the parking adjacent to. I mean, yeah. That was there before, though. I mean, that's just on-street parking. Like if there's angle parking or parallel parking, if there's designated parking there on the street adjacent to the property, I mean, that's what it's defining.
Yeah. So it's really superfluous because whether there's parking there or not, if the tree's overhanging at a certain height, it's got to be cut.
If it's less than 15 feet, yes.
Okay. That's all I got. Does anybody else have any questions? Councilman Cox?
A couple of questions. The first one is, if we enact this tonight, how will we notify the citizens that it's in effect?
I believe, do we publish our ordinances after they're adopted? Is that correct, Cora? Yes.
Okay. And then the second one is I completely support it, and I think this needs to happen for our community, but I think we're missing a step. I think we need a prohibition to prevent people from planting trees and shrubs within the right-of-way to begin with. I think if we had another section that would prohibit even starting, then now we hit both elements, the existing, and then if we build new areas, new lots, things like that, they can't build within the right-of-way, and that eliminates the problem.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Stevens?
Ms. Clifton, thank you for putting this together and working on all you do, because I know you have to bounce back and forth along lots of different things, but this is kind of my comments to the rest of the council probably. I think in a lot of instances, there's some things that we can do to clean up, maybe right-of-ways and visions and things like that. But my personal opinion, some of the most beautiful places you visit have trees that grow out over the streets. They have shrubs that are planted in a way that allow for good visibility, but they also allow for people to actually enjoy that and take it in. In the time of COVID, I think if we learned anything, it's that having natural beauty and walkability and being able to see things and appreciate our community on a very personal scale has become very important. I would encourage us as we think about enacting this and other things as we continue to go forward, as we look at our comprehensive plan too. I realize that this doesn't maybe necessarily dial into all of that, but it kind of proves a point to me that we need to continually think about how do we create beauty, how do we show off our community, and how are things that we can do that I think really maximize that. And if we learn anything through this is that we really crave interacting with each other and dealing with things, and when you have trees and you have plants and you value that in your community, I think it's a big deal. So that's all my comments were.
Anyone else, any questions or comments? Okay. Is there a motion? Motion, Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. And that was a motion to approve it, I'm assuming. So, Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Boatright?
No.
Stevens?
No.
Cox?
No.
Mayor?
No, and the motion fails. We're on to agenda item number 5, which is, you got your paperwork. Which is consider an act to reconsider the emergency enactment of ordinance number 2702 that amended section 54-52 face coverings mandated in public places of the Code of Ordinances of the City of McAllister. We are actually going to pull that tonight, and I'm going to call a special meeting for a week from Thursday, which would be the 17th, I think, if I do my math right, for 5:30, and this item will be the sole item at this point on that agenda. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be here. Sure, yeah, so we'll change that to 6. Yeah, I forgot your hours are a little different.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we are on to new business. Do we have any new business, Mr. Stasiak?
We do not, Mayor.
In that case, we will go to the city manager's report.
I just have two items this evening. We've been talking about the rural water districts and having that conversation with those districts. There's been several delays on this. It is now scheduled for next Tuesday, the 15th, and we'll be meeting with their accountant, our consultant who has put all the figures together and all the information. So that's happening next Tuesday. The other one I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is the ODOT project out on Highway 69. And this is coming upon us very quick. The contractor is out there currently by Carmark, clearing off some land. That's where he's going to be staging his equipment. And they are planning on starting this project right after the first of the year. So it's our understanding that the initial part that they will be working on is the frontage road from 14th Street down to Village. And they'll be rebuilding that frontage road. Then they'll be moving out onto the highway, eventually shutting down one side of the highway while they work on it with two-way traffic on the other side of the highway. So that project is coming up very quickly. That is a $27 million project for our community. They're going to have 2 crews working on this project, and it's estimated that it's going to take about 16 months to finish this project. So it's going to have a lot of changes down there for a long period of time. So we're asking the community to be patient, and this is the phase that will make the first phase work. So January 1, it's coming.
Remarks and inquiries by the council. Councilman Smith, Councilman Boatright, Councilman Cox,
Nothing, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Just real quick, I'm always talking about the Buffaloes. They went into the playoffs and they lost by 1 touchdown, but if you know any of these players, please compliment them, tell them how proud you are, because these boys have really worked hard this year. So, thank you.
Councilman Stevens. Just want to reiterate Vice Mayor Brown's comments. Yeah, they got beat in the last minute, and I think they went a lot farther than anybody thought they were going to go, and they played with a lot of heart, and congratulations to them. The other thing I have is Wagner & Lynch Law Firm. You guys have probably seen, it was in the newspaper today, I believe, have donated they've volunteered to beautify the center of the roundabout by the post office. There's going to be some lettering in there. It says McAllister, Oklahoma, that you could see from above, as well as vehicle-wise, and it's going to be something right in the middle. There's going to be a pad in the middle for a buffalo statue or whatever is determined to be put in there. It could be seasonal, anything like that. So thank you to them. And with that, we will move to, we'll recess the council meeting. I would take a motion to convene as McAllister Airport Authority. The motion to include approval of minutes from the November 24th, 2020 regular meeting of McAllister Airport Authority, confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B, and confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item C, and adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. I would now take a motion to convene as McAllister Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from the November 24th, 2020 regular meeting of McAllister Public Works Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B, C, 2, and 3, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. I would now take a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and we are adjourned. Thank you, guys.